Hello, everyone. I hope you all are having a wonderful Wednesday. I'm Brandon Ivy. I'm the Associate Artistic Director here at Village Theater. I'm here in my parents' office as I'm quarantining with them in beautiful Issaquah. We've done a couple of these happy hours, and we've featured some actors and an actor-writer and a music director. But now I'm really excited because we have two writers that have given us one of our most memorable new musicals that we've done, actually through almost every single part of the Village Theater process, which was our big hit last season, The Noteworthy Life of Howard Barnes. So please join me in welcoming the fantastic Michael Kooman and Chris Dimond to the show.
Hello.
Hello. Hey, Brandon.
How are you both?
Never been better in my entire life, ever.
What a time to be alive, right?
Totally.
And where are you both right now? Michael, you're in...
I'm in my sister's basement. You can see the ping pong table behind me.
Hey, have you used it yet?
What was that?
Have you used it yet?
I have not. The net is a little bit broken, but I've made this my writing studio. So I have a little, I got a keyboard from my high school band teacher that I borrowed. I'm back in my hometown in Pennsylvania. And I figured it was a good time to leave New York City, so I decided to get out.
It is a great time to leave New York City. And Chris, where are you?
I'm in New York City.
Speaking of,
yeah, I did not leave New York City, and I do not have a ping pong table in my apartment. So I'm here in Inwood in northern Manhattan.
There's a lovely shelf back there, though.
There is. I've got a bookcase behind me. I guess you can see it's really exciting. Yeah, not a lot to see. That's about all there is to see in my entire apartment.
Like a New York apartment. So welcome everyone that's joining us. Thanks for being here. Just so you know, in case you've never been to this before, I'm going to chat with Chris and Michael about a number of things, but mostly about Howard Barnes. If you have questions or comments, things you want to know, clarifying things, if there's any tech problems, if you all of a sudden can't hear me, go ahead and write, I think it's probably down here, or maybe it's over here, or maybe it's over here. I don't think it's up here.
Are we also allowed to write if we have tech comments? Can I comment in
if you have your own tech comments you don't want to say over the live stream, you could go to Village's Facebook page and comment. But please put your comments. I see all of them, and so we can get to things you might want to know. Anything you want to know about Chris Dimond and Michael Kooman. Anything in the world. I asked them in our little prep session what I could ask them and what I couldn't, and nothing is off limits. Nothing.
It's gonna get dangerous.
We're getting real tonight.
This could be the most exciting happy hour of all.
I think it is. I have a feeling.
So we spent at Village Theater, gosh, how long was that? It must have been, you started with us in 2013, correct?
Yes.
So we spent a good 5 years working on Howard Barnes. Why don't you talk, Chris, why don't you talk first just about where the idea of the show came from, and for anyone that hasn't seen it before, what it's about.
Sure. The Noteworthy Life of Howard Barnes is a musical that is about an average American man who wakes up one day to discover that his life has become a musical. And he is not the type of man who would enjoy such a metamorphosis. So he immediately sets out on a quest to escape from his musical life, because he knows very little about musical theater, and what he does know he dislikes greatly. So it's sort of a love letter / parody of the musical theater, and also a story about this man and what the real life issues that he's grappling with are that cause this fantastical change in his life to happen. So we kind of started just with the germ of an idea of what would happen if you woke up and your life suddenly had been musicalized. We thought that was a really funny concept and had a lot of potential for fun to be had with it. We were looking for an idea. We had just written a musical that was kind of dark, very serious, very heavy, and we're looking for
very good, but very good.
Thank you. Kind of. We were looking for something that was a little more lighthearted, a little more of an easy sell, if you will, to theaters in terms of actually getting the show produced. So we were kicking around ideas, and that was the one we landed on. And so we spent a good deal of time wrestling with exactly how to make it work. You know, before it came to the Village in 2013, we'd already been working on it for a number of years. So it really took about 10 years in all from sort of concept to final production.
Yeah, it takes a while. So the first time that you stepped into the Village process was our Festival of New Musicals in 2013, which for those that don't know, every summer Village puts on a festival, 3 days of new musical readings galore and concerts and talkbacks and all kinds of things. And so that is what we call a 29-hour reading, which is basically where the artists get like a week to work with actors and learn the whole show and read it behind music stands. There's no staging, there's no costumes, there's no set or anything like that. It's just to hear it off the page at a pretty early stage. But you had actually had some development on the show before the festival. So when you came into festival, what were you really working on? Michael, I know there were like a few specific things and pretty big picture things that you were looking at the festival that then when you came back the following summer for the developmental production, totally sort of changed the show a lot.
Yeah, we actually had originally, we had written a show that was in 2 acts. So it eventually came down to 90 minutes or close to 90 minutes in the Village. And I actually don't even remember when we cut the intermission. I don't remember when that happened. But I do remember we had another whole antagonist. There was like the character of the critic. We had like a critic character that was portrayed as a puppet, which was like also offensive to critics. I just want to like stand up for critics once and for all. You know, I think we need to like really, my heart goes out to them. But we portrayed them as a puppet, a literal puppet. And so Howard like went on this extra journey in the second half that he didn't need to go on. So like these developmental processes are just great for figuring out what needs to change. And we honestly had too much in the show. And we also had a bunch of songs we needed to rewrite, but we didn't know that. The show, when we did the first reading at the Festival of New Musicals, it was 2.5 hours long. It was 2 acts. There was an intermission. There was an extra character that didn't need to be there. But it was a great time to work on it. And I remember my first hike up Poo Poo Point. It was beautiful.
Oh, we love Poo Poo Point.
Our affair with Issaquah started that summer.
And so then that next summer of 2014, is when we did a developmental production of the show. And I do know that is when the show became a 1-act because I knew at festival it was really long. And it was, it's the length of a full-length musical, but then doing it in festival was a really big really big shift in the structure of the show. Oh, I see all of you posting questions and we will get to some of them. But some of them are but some of them are about things that we're not talking about right now, so I'll get to them eventually. This one does, which I think is maybe an interesting look into the process. How many festivals was this musical submitted to? Like, in the life of a writer, there's lots of submitting to festivals and grants and workshop places and all kinds of stuff. So like give like, and it doesn't need to be an exact answer. I see, Chris, I see you going like 1, 2, 3, 4, but like, for a typical show, because you're probably applying to a lot of the same festivals and theater companies and stuff with many of the same shows, like what's the typical process like trying to get your show produced?
Oh,
or even developed?
I don't even know what I'd have a hard time even estimating how many different opportunities we submitted this show to. I would say at the very least 15 to 20, somewhere in that range. Does that sound about right to you, Michael?
I think so.
Especially early on at that point when we did the Festival of New Musicals, we sent it to every opportunity that you can submit a new musical to. Basically, we were fortunate enough that a number of them for this show actually we got a lot of those opportunities and were able to develop it through a couple of other festivals as well. We did the festival at the O'Neill, the National Musical Theater Conference there. We did it as part of NAMP, the National Alliance for Music Theaters Festival.
Goodspeed.
We did a reading of it at Goodspeed, their new musical program. Yeah, we really, you kind of have to when you finally get a draft in the shape where it is ready to be heard, you need to hear it out loud to know what to do next. You just kind of blanket send it out to any opportunity that you can. So there are a lot of them, and you rack up, well, at least in those days, you were still actually physically mailing things to some places, if I recall correctly. So you racked up some postage fees in those days. Nowadays, not so much.
Well, and I'll use this for a moment to sort of tout Village Theater. It's so often writers will bounce around between a lot of different companies and get like one opportunity here and then never again. And then you go to another company and get another opportunity somewhere. Whereas one of the things I'm really proud about at Village is we're able to support projects from a very early stage, whether it be the festival or even before that. And Howard Barnes is this perfect example of finding a show that was so right for our audience that we found it when it was relatively new. It had had definitely a couple readings before we got to it. But then over these 5 years, it had probably probably 4 different parts of the process. It had the festival reading, it had our developmental production, it then had another reading that no one really saw except for the production team, and then the full-fledged production on the main stage.
Crazy. It's crazy that like how much you have to rewrite a show in order to make it work. And you don't even realize how much work you have to do until you see it in front of an audience. It's sort of a process that you just, it's so crazy because musicals are so expensive, but you do need to do the work, and you can only do the work once you've seen it in front of an audience. And so thankfully the Village gave us that chance to do it 3 times, if not more.
I have a little, I have some photos. I got photos, you guys. Look, this is from the festival. And that's Taryn Dar, who ended up playing the same part on the main stage.
That's amazing.
And then this was the developmental production over at First Stage.
So good.
Like the workshopiest of workshops that then turned into this glorious production that we got to do on the main stage, which we're all very, very proud of.
Such good memories.
Oh, memories. I love this one specifically because it like contrasts that between the workshop version, and it's like totally different.
Totally different. The same lovely self-aggrandizing Jeff Steitzer character that was created in all 3 versions, though. I love it.
Yeah, he was the one stalwart.
Yes.
From the beginning at Village Theater, Jeff Steitzer, who played von Schwarzenheim.
Totally.
Look who's with us. RJ Tatsuoko, our music director for the main stage production.
That sweetheart. He's I'm glad he's not just lurking. I'm glad he's making himself known.
Yeah, right. Tyler Haar is obsessed.
I'm obsessed with Tyler Haar.
We love Tyler Haar. And Stephanie says Steitzer was amazing, which we all agree.
Yeah.
There's only one Jeff Steitzer. So when we got to the main stage, one of the things that I wanted to talk with Michael and Chris about was they are some of the best. There's a really great quote about new musicals aren't written, they're rewritten. And Chris and Michael are some of the, they're great writers to begin with, but they're some of the best rewriters in the business. And that was really, really apparent when we worked on the show for the main stage production, because there actually was a bit of a gap in between the time that we spent on it, where we took a couple of years off. And one of the exciting things that Chris and Michael did during that time, and are still doing now, I think, is they became writers on a Disney Channel show called Vampirina that some of you may be aware of that don't realize that Chris and Michael are the writers on that show. And one of the things that the two of you told me was what the rewrite process was like with Disney and on a TV show and how that works. Talk about just what that process is a little bit, and then how that then kind of dovetails into working on musicals.
Sure. Michael, you want to talk about that? Or do you want me?
Sure. So when we're so-called in season on our television show, we're writing probably 2 songs a week. And so that's 2 new songs a week. We submit those drafts, and then the next week we're getting notes on those songs, but also launching 2 new songs that week. So there's a process that's built in, so we get 2 rounds of notes. So we could ultimately be working on 6 songs at any given time. And we just got used to taking notes. And some of the notes are good, and some of the notes are not so good. And you just kind of have to take them. It's a bit more of a job, I would say. And so we just got used to being like, okay, here's the note we have to take. How do we make this the best song it can be and still take this note? Which is such good rewriting training for musical theater, because, you know, in musicals, for example, this show, I think, took 8 years to get from the first word that we wrote to the final production at the Village Theater. And, you know, our heart and souls are in it. And we just want it to be the best thing it can be. So when a note arises that is really a solid, smart note, we go, okay, now we know how to attack it, because we've had this practice doing it on this television show for so long. And even when the notes maybe aren't as solid, might you say. So anyway, we're just sort of like we're used to rewriting, and we're like, I think a little bit of it is learning that you can still write a good song and take a note. You know, you can write a great song and take your ego out of it. So I think that's how.
Yeah. So the example that I'm going to use is, and I love that it's many people's favorite number in the show, and it's a song called "Shoot the Puck." And it's a moment when it happens pretty early in the show, and it's a moment when Howard, oh, look who's joined us. Taryn Dar is here. Taryn Dar has joined us. Taryn played Maggie in the festival and the main stage productions. What did you say, Michael?
Village royalty.
Seattle royalty. She's
Seattle royalty.
She belongs to all of Seattle. So this song, "Shoot the Puck," comes up. Oh my gosh! The whole gang is here.
Oh,
Sarah Russell's here.
Sarah Russell.
You're gonna see some Sarah Russell coming up here in a second. Oh, and there's Kate. Oh god, now we're just having a big cast reunion.
I love it. I love it. We need to have our Real Housewives reunion episode,
right?
Where we all like rip each other apart. No, I'm teasing. There's
Sarah and Kate were both in the ensemble. Sarah sang sort of the feature in "Shoot the Puck." Taryn was Kate was an old lady in the opening number, an old bag lady. Anyways, so this number "Shoot the Puck" happens when Howard goes to a New York Rangers game, a hockey game, and this song pops up in the middle of his experience at the hockey game. And it was always a highlight of the show, no matter which, whether it was at the reading or the developmental production. It was always like the centerpiece of the score. And then we did all this work on the show over a couple of years, and we got to our first rehearsal room run through at Village. And Chris, why don't you talk a little bit about sort of the moment that we all kind of sat down after the first run through and said, like, I think there needs to be a change here.
Yeah, it was, it was interesting. It wasn't necessarily in looking at the song itself that there was anything wrong with it, or that there was anything not working about the song itself. But in the larger context of the show, of the entire show, it felt like we were losing a little bit of energy at a point when we wanted to really kind of kick off Howard's journey and heighten the stakes of it. And there was something about the original song that just didn't feel like it was firing on all cylinders to us. We felt like there could be a better version of it. There could be a similar idea, a similar song that served the exact same purpose and included a lot of the same content, but that just worked a little better in terms of really driving forward and pushing the show forward. And so I think it was Michael who had the initial impulse for what the change became, with a musical change that would ratchet things up a bit and make it work a little more effectively.
Yeah, so we have, Michael's going to talk a little bit about it in a second, but I went into the archives and I found like the original demo for this song from like 2012 or something like that. Maybe it's even earlier than that. I don't actually know when you recorded it. But what we're going to do is we're going to show you what the song was originally and what it was as we went into the production. And then Michael's going to talk a little bit about what he wanted to look at and change. And then we'll show you what it ended up being in the long run. So we're going to do some fancy technology here. And I'm going to digitally, I'm going to play you somehow through the interwebs. Let's see if this works. But I'm not going to show you that, but I think you should still be able to hear it. So let's try this, okay? This is the original version of Shoot the Puck.
There she sits. Now you screwed these things up once or twice. But don't quit. Lace up your skates and get on the ice. Do it fast. Feel the sweat pour out of every pore. Well, you passed and you passed and you passed and you passed, but don't you know you gotta shoot to score?
Okay, so the things that that I think about, I always was like, oh, it's like Kiss the Girl and it's like romantic, it's like Little Mermaid, and it's like romance is blooming. But Michael, do you want to talk a little bit about
Sure.
what you wanted to change about that?
Yeah, so I believe it was Kat Ramsberg, who, shall I say, is another Seattle royalty.
Yeah,
Kat Ramsberg
Kat Ramsberg is a former actor who Village audience members will remember her from. She was the lead in It Should Have Been You when it was at Village. She was also like Martha in The Secret Garden. But she has an entirely new part of her career that she always did, but she now fully does it as a dramaturg and script consultant. And she works with Brian Yorkey and on a number of things, but especially 13 Reasons Why and a number of these other projects. So she's a really awesome musical theater dramaturg that gave us some feedback.
Totally. I believe we Skyped her in to that first read through, and she was, I think the note was just, it's not firing on all cylinders. Mm-hmm. And then we sort of just like took it to the other room and we're like, what is going on here? And I think what we ultimately came up with was, we were just like, okay, we're in second song into the show. We've established that it's a musical comedy. We got to keep the jokes coming. The jokes are like good in the old version, but they weren't like firing on all cylinders. Kat Ramsberg was so right. And like, I have my piano here, as I showed you before, at the beginning of this podcast. Well, it's not a podcast, it's whatever we're doing here. But let me just play the old version and I'll play then what we came. Well, the old version was nice. There she sits. Now you screw these things up once or twice. So just listen to how much space is in that, actually. There she sits. Now you screw these things up once or twice. But don't quit. So there's like so much space. And we tried to fill it up with like background vocals once or twice. But ultimately, the jokes were not as rapid fire as we wanted them to be. And just like we're all sitting here conversing right now, there's not that much space between one sentence and the next. So we felt like we needed to take the space out. The jokes were good, but we needed to ratchet up the pace at which we were saying the jokes. And we sort of, I don't think we were getting anything from the sort of like Kiss the Girl vibe. So we decided to go a little bit more old school, a little bit more Jersey Boys with it. So I think that's kind of what we decided to put into this new thing. The crazy thing is that you didn't actually get to the chorus on the old version. We totally copied and pasted the chorus from the old version to the new version. But we kept a lot of that same things, but we did a completely new verse.
And the other thing that I remember us talking about was that Kiss the Girl vibe, which is so great in Little Mermaid and is so great just as its own thing. It was always sort of like, oh, we're at a hockey game. There would be like it would be a little more energetic and stuff. And so now I think a lot of the stuff that I'm about to show is hitherto unseen, or at least the parts of it that I'm showing you are unseen. We're going into the my personal. I've gone and like found these things that I'm probably not supposed to have, but you're gonna get some. You're gonna get it anyways. All right, here we go. I'm gonna share my screen. This is. I've done this before, so you wouldn't think it would be that hard. Okay.
Split the D and you'll be coasting on the breakaway, and then you'll put her in the back of the net. It's your ring, forever, and you're gonna drink from the Stanley Cup to be underdog. Come on, Howard, man, shoot the puck, shoot the puck, shoot the puck, shoot the puck. Come on, Howard, and shoot the puck, shoot the puck. Come on, Howard, you can do it. Coming in the closet.
Crazy.
Oh, that's how that song sort of developed. The other thing that I actually just, and I'm gonna look and see if I can find it on without getting it up on the screen because I don't want to overpromise. Oh, it totally is here. I've totally got it. This other fun thing about the process is that, you know, when you're developing a new musical, when you get like, I've been working on it recently, so when you get like Hello Dolly, oh, I just have to, oh, we have a friend, we have a writer friend. I think this is Anna K. Jacobs. Yep, it is.
It is.
Anna says it's very funny. She digs it.
A lot.
So
I love Anna.
When you get a show like Hello Dolly or some show that's been done before, all of the transitions have all been figured out. So that show is like ready to go. But Howard Barnes is obviously new, and because we were doing, it's a big production. This production of Howard Barnes is very big, and so we ended up having a moment of not being able to make a scene change happen as scripted. I remember we had our first read through or run through, and Chris, Christopher Muma, our scenic designer, was like, "You are never getting that set changed in that amount of time." We were like, okay, how much time do you need? And I think he said like 45 seconds, which is like endless. Normally if it was like, oh yeah, we need 3 to 5 seconds, it's like, oh yeah, just like play some music for a little bit. But like 45 seconds, can you imagine 45 seconds of just sitting in like the dark waiting for a set to move? So Chris and Michael made this like ingenious idea of extending this shoot the puck sequence. Chris, do you want to talk about how this little piece came about?
Sure. This was one of the last changes we made before the show opened, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. It was literally just that we were at the point where there was no way, it was not physically possible to make the scene change in time. And so we had to add time to the show, which is a really weird thing to have to do as a writer, because we've worked really, really hard to make sure the show was as streamlined as possible. And so we were kind of banging our heads up against the wall trying to figure out what can we add here that's not going to feel like just filler, that won't feel like we're covering a scene change. And so there was a gag that we had kind of always wanted to work in from a really, really early draft that never saw the light of day. No one other than I think Michael or I had seen it. where Howard had a chorus that just started narrating things that happened to him in his everyday life, just offstage voices. And we, you know, it was a funny gag, but never really warranted actually including in the show. So we thought maybe it would be funny to try to do something like that here. And so we came up with probably the dumbest gag in the entire show, which is where this ensemble just starts literally narrating Howard's walk home from the hockey game. And it turned out to be one of our favorite moments in the entire show, actually.
Can I also just say that, like, as we were writing it, Chris really was like trying to like rhyme this part. And I was like, Chris, this has to be dumb. So in order for it to be dumb, it needs to not rhyme. I was like, please take the rhymes out of it. Let's just find something dumb to say. So anyway, I'm glad you found it.
And one of the other things that I just love, I just love our Seattle actors in general so much. But it's like when you then have a cast and get to start working with them, you're able to like write things for people. And I remember it was so much fun to watch the two of you have this idea and then be like, okay, Sarah Russell is singing this. How do we tailor this to Sarah Russell and give her vocals that she'll do really well and like go with her kind of sense of comedy and style? Like it was all so much fun to watch it all come together.
I would never write a vocal part that is 2 octaves. This part is literally what you're about to hear is 2 octaves of a vocal melody. And I would never write that for like just anyone. If I didn't know who was singing it, I would never write 2 octaves. So thank you, Sarah Russell, for having 2 octaves for us to work with.
Anna Jacobs wants to know who orchestrated.
Good question. Mike Petrie, our fabulous orchestrator, who also does all of our Disney stuff. He did this, and he was fantastic.
He also, did he write or orchestrate? I think he wrote the mockumentary.
I think he orchestrated the mockumentary.
Or you orchestrated it.
The company. Yeah, the company.
What is the name of it? The company one. What's it called?
Co-op?
Co-op. Go and find Co-op. It's so funny. Mike Petrie orchestrated it. Is amazing. Here, okay, now I definitely know that no one has seen this because we never released this on the B-roll, but this is the playoff that we've been talking about this whole time. So we'll see how this goes. Ooh.
So Howard's walking down the street. But now he's turning round the other way. And he is looking at us angry like, why so mad? Now he is going over there a bit. Over there. Look at him getting in a taxi cab. I think he's probably going home. Yeah, Howard's probably going home. I think that Howard's almost home. Howard's home. Yeah!
What's going on? It's continuing.
Oh my gosh. Also, excellent transition, Brandon. That's so seamless. I love it.
Thank you.
The amazing backstage crew that made that happen.
I mean, yeah, our stage managers, our crew. That was just the craziest. It was designed so well to like move and go back and forth, and it was. I can't imagine it being any faster.
Yeah.
And were people quick changing? No, I don't think people were quick changing. But it was just having to get all those stairs back and get this apartment unit in. Like that was just nutso. So now the other part of this crazy process in getting the show to the main stage is the biggest change for the main stage was that we had this. The show used to end in a very sweet. Intimate moment between the two leads, Howard and Maggie, where the show wrapped up in a really lovely bow that was sweet. It was really, really sweet and charming. And we just felt that we had done this big, splashy musical, but we never actually got the moment of like big, splashy musical. We had done lots of like production numbers, but we never got like our big Broadway finale. And so at some point we decided to extend the show and write this big, rousing finale. Chris, do you want to talk about sort of like where that came and sort of Howard's journey and what that story was?
I mean, that was sort of, you know, the constant through line of all the rewrites was really focusing the show on the heart of Howard's journey and Howard's kind of discovery of what's missing in his life. And the original ending was very true to Howard. It was Howard kind of finding this nice sentimental moment with Maggie, but we felt like we wanted, after watching him go through this whole musical process, we really wanted to see him embrace musical theater in sort of its most outlandish, extravagant form. And so we kind of crafted the most ridiculous, over-the-top production number finale that we could come up with, which really, I mean, early in the process of writing the show, we never thought of as a legitimate possibility because it seems unproducible in this day and age. When you're writing a new musical, typically you're trying to keep it to 3 people and a piano if you can. And, you know, thankfully the Village allowed us to and kind of gave us the freedom to say, like, what does this show need to be? What does it want to be? And let's do it in the form that it needs to be. And that turned out to be a finale that took up, I don't remember the exact percentage of our budget, but it was, I want to say it was something like 40% of the budget.
It was a lot. I will say, like, Village is one of the very few places I can think of in the country that has ever said to a musical, I think there needs to be more people, costumes, budget. like we've added ensemble to shows, and writers are always like, you want me to add people to the show? It's normally like, how few can we do the show with? And so the fact that we decided, like, yeah, let's throw like a bunch of money and a bunch of our resources into this finale, and I think in the end it really paid off. And Michael gave you the opportunity to write a big, giant, rousing finale.
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool because I got to take all of these like themes, these musical themes that came from lots of different worlds, because, you know, we had this world that was sort of the genuine Howard world that felt like a little bit like retro pop, 80s, 90s pop. And then we had, of course, these pastiche numbers where we're totally in, I don't know, West Side Story for a second, or we're in these other specific musicals for a second. But it gave us a chance to take these numbers that really took Howard on the journey and come back to the themes, bring them all together in this like crazy big dance thing. We got to do tap. We got to do basically everything that we had done before, but do it through this like lens of dance, and even a lot of stuff we hadn't done before. So it was really cool.
One of the things that I thought was so clever about it was throughout the whole show, Howard is like fish out of water, but the love interest in the show, Maggie, is like a Broadway super fan. She wanted to be an actor. And so it was figuring out how to make a big finale that was like Howard's finale and that would fit in that world, but that also then showed him coming around to Maggie and all that kind of stuff. So there was like tap dancing New York Rangers, like in full hockey regalia and stuff, which was super funny. Then there's a whole section for Maggie that like he kind of like manifests this staircase because she always wanted to dance down a staircase like White Christmas, like, and then at the end he gets these lasers that he always are like, Chris, you wrote this great line of like, oh, are there lasers in musicals? And Maggie's like, no, there's not. He's like, oh, that'd be cool. And so then when he gets his own musical, he's like, there's going to be lasers in my musical. And we wanted it to be pyrotechnics, but
that's true.
That was too much money.
Yeah,
I remember you like having this conversation with us that was like, okay, what do we want in this show? And like we made this like crazy list of what we wanted. And I was like, I really want fire.
And we went down this path. Like we went and found like Cold Sparks. We went and like,
yeah,
so close. If we ever go to Broadway, we'll get it for Broadway.
We're getting that fire.
So here is definitely unreleased footage because we were very, very protective of this finale. We didn't want anyone to know it or expect it. Because when you got this big reveal, you saw this huge set that you're like, where did they store that? How would that ever happen? So here we go. We're gonna play you some pieces of of the finale. Okay, now I'm going to go to a little later where I'm trying to 24. Oh, this is the closest thing we got to pyrotechnics.
Not too shabby, huh?
Practically perfect.
Practically. Lasers! No way!
It's everywhere, it's everywhere. It's everywhere, it's everywhere. It's everywhere, it's everywhere. Our lives they all contain a clear melodic strain. So grab your hat and king is music everywhere. Go on and find your song. It's playing something strong. If you just sing along, there's music everywhere. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's everywhere, it's everywhere.
Oh,
Crazy.
oh, I missed that.
Shout out to our choreographer, Al Blackstone.
Yeah, someone actually mentioned him earlier, so I was gonna put that up. Al Blackstone was our choreographer for the show, who was like musical comedy gold. Just most amazing. And was so fun to conceive that finale with.
You know, it was crazy. I remember like we just kind of like we had such endless conversations about like things that were like, okay, where does the costume change go? Because ultimately, like things like when does he come up? How long? That's our sketch. That's our sketch of like this.
I don't know if you can see all this, but it has like, what does it say? It says like Rangers, Tap Howard,
Maggie and the boys.
Yeah. I think the blue is like what's happening on stage, and the pink is vocals, and the yellow is dialogue, I think.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that hilarious?
That's crazy. I mean, because like we were ultimately, it's like, it's such a weird thing to be like, okay, we need this huge 9-minute dance break that feels climactic at the end of this show. And we had to incorporate like 5 different sort of like payoff moments. One of them is the staircase. One of them is the lasers. We just had to like do like 5 different things, but we also had to make it feel like that's the eventual place of where this story ended up. And it also had to feel like it was the perfect ending to this show. So like there was a lot at stake doing this. I remember just sort of being like, wow, we gotta really hit this out of the park. And Al was really a great resource on being like, I think the dress needs to come off right here. And you had such great ideas about like, you were the one who really wanted to make this 9-minute dance break happen. I believe you said 10 minutes from the
I
beginning.
wanted it to be 10.
We talked
No.
to you for 9.
I think it was 9. I think it was only 9.
It was only 9.
The thing that I realized as we were watching that, because you can sort of hear it a little bit if you're listening carefully, is we did have confetti.
Oh yeah,
It's true. We did have confetti.
We did have confetti.
Pyrotechnics would have been better, but confetti was.
Don't forget, anybody ask if you have questions. You're all giving like amazing comments and stuff. Like I love all of these. Like Bobby blasts the song of her card. Yes, Lorimer loves it. So much fun. There's so many tears. Lots of people have tears as they're. Oh, I love that Beth watched this before she figured out how the costume switch worked. That was pretty. When we knew there needed to be a costume switch, because we were like, Maggie can't just be doing this whole finale in her show dress. And actually, the way that it worked, it was literally just like some magnet snaps. I can't remember if she had I'm sure she probably had a dress that she was wearing the whole show and then changed into her quick change dress. And it was like, it was magnets up here, and I think probably on the sides. And Nick DeSantis, also Seattle star Nick DeSantis, would just like rip it off of her and like throw it behind the stairs. But it happened so fast that it seemed like magic. We got applause most nights. It was so cool.
That B-roll really brings me back. It was such a wonderful process. Can I also just say before we move on that like seeing everyone there, it was super awesome to work with this like amazing ensemble, because like as we were like casting this, I think we originally came in with being like, oh, we want 6 funny people and then 6 dancers or something like that. And I remember eventually as we were like doing this, we're like, no, we need like 12 triple threat people. And so we were able to figure out places for each of them to shine in the show, because we had this unbelievably talented ensemble. And we were like, let's give everyone at least one moment, hopefully several moments, to like really shine, whether it's vocally or comedically or dancing wise. And I'm glad we were able to hopefully do that.
Yeah, I remember us going through the audition process and having like our character tracks and our dancer tracks and not really thinking that they like blended a lot. And then the more we got through that process, I think Al was probably the one that was like, no guys, everyone has to dance. And then if everyone has to dance, then everyone has to be funny. And then we lucked out on the people that we got. And I will have to say, the person we haven't said anything about yet tonight is Josh Carter, who played Howard, the doesn't leave stage for more than 5 seconds, and when he does leave, he's quick changing. Like,
yeah,
on his shoulders. So we do have a couple questions from people. What we haven't talked about is the cast recording. We had the most amazing opportunity to do a studio cast recording of the Village Theater cast and orchestra.
Yes, it was so cool. It was super fun. Because when we got this production, we were super happy. And you know, the crazy thing about being a writer is that we spent 8 years writing the show. We spent maybe 5 weeks in rehearsal. And then we came back to New York and they were performing it for 2 months. And we got back to New York and we were like, yeah, that was pretty awesome. We should probably do this. And we were like, just like reading the cast reports every day, or what are they called? The production reports every day. And we're like, I don't know if we're ever going to have something like this again. I think we need to like record this. And that's when we started putting the sort of cogs into place of like how we can do it. We went and did the orchestra one day in November. I think we closed like November 18th or something like that. We did the orchestra like November 5th or something. We did like a quick recording of a quick like comp of the orchestra. And then we went back and did all of the actors maybe the day after closing, the 2 days after closing. And it was just a super fun process.
So I found one, where did that comment go? Oh no, I've lost it. We were just talking about how great the ensemble was. I love this dream roll ensemble of Power Fives.
Yeah, me.
I mean, if you want to be a dancer that gets some funny features and get to sing your butt off, like everyone got a feature in the show, and it was so cool. And some of the biggest laughs came from our ensemble. I will never forget Hannah Sherman and her Spring Awakening spoof in the subway.
Not old. You know, part of the reason we wanted to do the recording was just to preserve these performances. You know, we were really, really blessed with an incredibly talented, dedicated, hardworking cast and crew, and not to mention the musicians. You know, and we just thought this is something we need to make sure we've got a copy of forever.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you.
So one of the that's just Iris praising you.
Thank you, Iris.
That's very kind of you to say.
So here's a question from a long time ago, from the beginning of the stream. What was the first show you collaborated on as artistic partners? This is a great story.
I don't know if it's a great story.
I don't know. I think it's interesting.
So we met when we were students at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. I was a graduate playwriting student, and Michael was an undergraduate composition major. And we met in a class that was called Libretto, that was actually about lyric writing for some reason. And we sat across the room from each other for a semester and didn't speak a word to one another the whole time. And then at the end of that semester, we started just writing songs together. So the first things we wrote together were self-contained cabaret songs that were done as a fundraiser for the senior musical theater majors, the performers at CMU. And then we ended up, the first actual book musical that we wrote together is the show called Danny Girl, that was written as my thesis project at Carnegie Mellon, and has gone on to have a number of productions since. So that was technically our first musical.
Well, but I mean, Homemade Fusion.
Well, yeah, okay. Homemade Fusion, which is a song cycle. It's a collection of those early songs that we wrote together. Some of which are ridiculous and crazy, and were a lot of fun to write. And we were really, really blessed to have a number of terrific performers premiere those, because the acting program, the drama program at CMU is so strong. So, you know, Patina Miller sang one of the first songs that we wrote together. We wrote it for her, which is really kind of an unbelievable gift.
I loved that a number actually, but a few of our Howard Barnes cast have sung songs from Homemade Fusion in concert in Seattle. Like, one of my favorite things that Taryn Dar has ever done was, oh man, I'm not going to remember the name of the song. I remember one of the lyrics, but I can't say the lyric on this live stream.
Sherman and Madeline?
Yes, Sherman and Madeline.
That's actually the very first song we ever wrote together.
Oh my gosh. Sherman and Madeline is one, I think it's one of the funniest. I think it's so funny. It's so inappropriate and
Thank you. I mean, it sort of crystallized our writing relationship, because we bonded over this like crazy weird thing to like write a first song about. Anyway.
Yeah, about what that song. Go Google it if you want to find it. Google Sherman and Madeline, Taryn Dar, not safe for work. Here's a question that's like an interesting one. Why did you leave that Spring Awakening parody off the recording?
Good question.
Good question. So Chris and I, we had a lot of conversations about what to put on the recording and what not to put on the recording. And mostly wanted it to be an experience that made sense and was enjoyable to anyone who listened to it. And even though that Spring Awakening parody and a lot of other parts were hard to cut, I felt it was important to make an album that had a really great listening experience. I don't know, Chris, what are your thoughts on that? I forget why we specifically didn't include that.
Part of it is that it's hard to excerpt from how it works with the scene around it, and it's also really short. So we felt like it might feel a little weird out of context just to have such a short song, and unfortunately, you know, with the demands that come into producing a cast album, you know, we weren't able to include literally every note that is in the show on the recording. So there were a few things that didn't quite make it on there.
Well, there's the entire subway section before, or wait, the section. Yeah, it was the subway section with the Spring Awakening part and the Dream Ballet and something else. So there was a whole middle section that didn't get reported and a whole Grace puppet thing that didn't get recorded, right?
Well, pretty much all of Grace's songs, except for one called Commitment Phobic, were cut. The first song that Grace sings, the amazing Jasmine, what's her full name?
Jasmine Jeanson.
Jasmine Jeanson. Her first song is like literally 32 seconds long. And we were like, if it's less than a minute, I just don't know if it like financially makes sense to like complete this recording that way. But then her really, really big song at the end had so much dialogue. And then also in the middle of it was a reprise of the first song. And we were like, it just doesn't make sense it just is going to be weird on a recording.
And what RJ just commented, the whole like 6-minute dance sequence in the finale was cut.
Yeah, because I felt like that was going to be such a WTF moment. If you're listening to the album, you're like, what is going on? And part of like doing the album in the first place is like, we want people to enjoy and experience this as if they're experiencing it in the theater. And if they can't tell what's going on from just like an audio perspective, I'm not sure we want to recreate that. And I there's so many arguments for it, but like also we were producing it ourselves. And if we were just unsure of it and like really on the edge about it, we kind of needed to like cut it out.
It's one of those things that I can't wait for the future when like someday the show will be done by like high schools. And like, I just think it's so funny that like some high school will like listen to the album and like maybe read the script and be like, oh, how exciting. We're going to do Howard Barnes. And then they like get the score and they're like, what's this dance break?
Surprise, 9-minute dance break.
Surprise. Yeah. Well, you both, it's so great. I haven't talked to either of you in so long. It's been so nice to chat with you. I think our time, we've been here for almost an hour.
Wow, that's hard to believe. Hopefully people listening. That's great.
There's still people here, so I guess it's been remotely interesting.
That's good. That's good. It's probably the cast, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just our cast and like a couple other people.
That's all right too.
But this like walk down memory lane has been so wonderful. I hope you both are doing well and staying safe and washing your hands.
Likewise. Thank you so much for doing this. It was such a pleasure. It was such a joyful trip down memory lane.
I know, right?
Really a joy.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with another happy hour with some more exciting guests. Stay tuned and stay safe out there.
Thank you. Thank you all for watching.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.